Thinking in Bets, Making Smarter Decisions When You Don't Have All the Facts, by Annie Duke. Picture this. It's Super Bowl Sunday. The clock's ticking down. 26 seconds left. The Seattle Seahawks are one measly yard away from glory. 1 yard. The entire world knows what's about to happen. They're going to hand the ball to Marshawn Lynch, their bulldozer of a running back who treats defensive lines like they're made of tissue paper. It's the obvious move. The only move, really. Except that's not what happens. The quarterback drops back, the ball flies through the air, and just like that, intercepted. Game over. Seahawks lose. The next morning, absolute carnage. Headlines screaming about the worst call in football history. Fans calling for Coach Pete Carroll's head. Sports commentators tearing him apart on live television. The man made an idiotic decision, and the result proved it beyond any doubt. Or did it? Here's something wild. In the 15 seasons leading up to that game, passes thrown from the 1-yard line got intercepted only about 2% of the time. The pass play also stopped the clock, giving Seattle more shots at the end zone if it didn't work. A failed run? That would have burned precious seconds. By every reasonable measure, it was actually a smart, calculated gamble. This single moment exposes something broken in how pretty much all of us think. We're obsessed with judging our decisions by their results. Good outcome? Brilliant choice. Bad outcome? Terrible mistake. Case closed. But what if we've got it completely backward? That's the revolutionary question at the heart of Thinking in Bets, a genuinely mind-bending book by Annie Duke. Now, Annie's backstory is wild. She was deep into her PhD in cognitive psychology, studying how our brains work and make decisions, when she made a hard left turn. She dropped out and became a professional poker player. And not just any player, a world champion who won millions by mastering the art of making huge decisions under crushing pressure with incomplete information. Her poker table became her laboratory. She watched brilliant people make catastrophic choices when luck, emotion, and uncertainty entered the picture. And through it all, she developed a mental framework that separates the amateurs from the champions, not just in poker, but in everything. In this summary, I'm going to walk you through that framework. By the end, you'll understand the massive difference between making a good decision and getting a good result. You'll see why life isn't chess, where everything's visible, but poker, where the important stuff is always hidden. And most importantly, you'll walk away with practical tools to help you make smarter, calmer, more confident choices in your career, your relationships, and everything in between. This isn't just about cards. It's about learning to think in a way that tips the odds in your favor for the long haul. Let's start with the idea that changes everything once you really get it. Life is poker, not chess. Think about chess for a second. Everything's laid out in front of you. You see all your opponent's pieces. They see yours. No secrets, no luck. If you lose at chess, you got outplayed. Plain and simple. You can trace back through the game and pinpoint exactly where you messed up. The outcome reflects the quality of your decisions almost perfectly. We love to believe life works like chess. Work hard. Make smart choices. Follow a solid strategy. Success will follow. Fail? Well, you must have screwed up somewhere. We look for someone to blame, usually ourselves. But life doesn't work that way, does it? Life is uncertain, messy. Critical information is always missing. And a massive chunk of how things turn out is just dumb luck. You can make the perfect decision and still get crushed. You can also make a terrible decision and come out smelling like roses. Think about it. Someone drives home drunk and makes it safely. Did they make a good decision? Absolutely not. They made an awful decision and got lucky. The accident didn't happen. But that doesn't change the quality of their choice. On the flip side, imagine a CEO who spends months researching, consulting experts, and thoughtfully decides to fire an underperforming executive. Then, sales tank. Was it a bad decision or just bad luck? Welcome to poker. In poker, you can play a hand perfectly, making the statistically correct move every single time, and still lose to a lucky card at the end. You can also play horribly and win the whole pot by pure chance. Great poker players don't just survive this world of uncertainty, they thrive in it. They do it by separating two things the rest of us constantly confuse: the quality of their decisions and the quality of their outcomes. This trap of judging decisions by results has a name: resulting, and it's one of the most dangerous thinking errors we make. When we fall into resulting, we stop learning from experience. Good outcome? Our strategy must be genius. No need to examine it further. Bad outcome? We beat ourselves up and vow never to make that mistake again, even if the decision was actually sound. Pete Carroll's Super Bowl call is the perfect example. The outcome was disastrous, an interception. So everyone concluded the decision was disastrous. But imagine if that pass had been caught for a touchdown. The headlines would have read, "Gutsy, brilliant call wins Super Bowl for Carroll." Same exact decision. The only difference would be that 2% chance outcome. So the first step to thinking better is breaking this link in your mind. An outcome is just one possible future that happened to occur. It's not a verdict on your choice. But if our brains are hardwired for this error, what can we do? How do we start thinking differently? This is where Annie Duke introduces a simple but powerful shift in mindset. It starts with two words. Wanna bet? Imagine you're chatting with a friend, and you confidently declare, "Oh, Citizen Kane obviously won Best Picture. It's the greatest film ever made." Your friend looks at you and says, "Wanna bet?" What happens in your head? That rock-solid certainty starts crumbling. You question yourself. Wait, how do I actually know that? Did I read it? Or did I just assume? What does my friend know that I don't? That simple challenge forces you to stop and examine your own belief. It pushes you from absolute certainty into probability. By the way, Citizen Kane didn't win Best Picture. This wanna bet framework is the heart of thinking in bets. It's recognizing that every decision we make is, fundamentally, a bet. A bet on a future outcome, based on what we believe about the world. When you order chicken instead of steak, you're betting that future you who eats chicken will be happier than future you who eats steak. When you pick a college, you're placing a massive bet on which version of your future self will be more successful and fulfilled. We don't usually think this way. We think of bets as something that happens in casinos, where you win or lose against someone else. But Annie beautifully explains that most of our bets aren't against other people. We're betting against all the other possible versions of ourselves we're giving up. When you choose to go to the movies tonight, you're betting against the version of you that stays home to study, the version that hits the gym, and the version that learns a new skill. You're implicitly saying the path you've chosen is the best one, most likely to lead to the future you want. Viewing decisions through this lens does something powerful. It forces you to acknowledge uncertainty in everything. It pushes you away from black and white thinking, from being completely right or completely wrong, and instead to think in shades of gray, in percentages and probabilities. Good decision makers don't think in certainties, they think in confidence levels. Instead of saying, "This will happen," they say, "I'm about 70% confident this will happen." This isn't weakness, it's intellectual honesty. It's an accurate representation of a world where nothing's guaranteed. Think about how this redefines what it means to be wrong. At a poker tournament, Annie once announced that one player had a 76% chance to win a hand, the other 24%. The final card came down, and the 24% hand won. Someone in the crowd shouted, "Annie, you were wrong." But she wasn't. She calmly explained, "I said it would happen 24% of the time. That's not zero. You just got to see the 24%. When you start thinking this way, a bad outcome no longer feels like personal failure. It's just one possibility in a range of futures. An unlikely event occurred. It doesn't mean your thinking was flawed. This shift brings incredible self-compassion. You stop beating yourself up for things simply out of your control. Of course, this goes both ways. If you aren't wrong just because things went badly, you aren't right just because things went well. That drunk driver who made it home safely wasn't brilliant. They were a fool who got lucky. You have to give up the ego boost of taking all the credit for your successes if you want freedom from taking all the blame for your failures. And as Annie points out, since research shows losses feel about twice as bad as wins feel good, this is an excellent trade. So if we accept that life is poker, and all our decisions are bets on an uncertain future, the next question is, how do we become better bettors? How do we improve the quality of our beliefs, which are the foundation of all our bets? Unfortunately, this is where things get trickier, because it turns out our brains aren't designed to be objective truth seekers. They're designed to be efficient storytellers. Annie points to fascinating research by psychologist Daniel Gilbert, which reveals how we actually form beliefs. We think it works like this. First, we hear something. Second, we analyze it to see if it's true. Third, we form a belief. But that's not what happens. The research shows it actually works like this. First, we hear something. Second, we automatically believe it's true. And third, only sometimes, if we have time and energy, do we go back and question it. Believing is our brain's default setting. It's effortless. Doubting takes hard work. This is an evolutionary shortcut. Back on the savannah, if you heard rustling in the grass, it was safer to believe it was a lion and be wrong than to doubt it was a lion and be wrong. Assuming things are true kept our ancestors alive. But in our modern world of information overload, this believe first, question later system gets us into serious trouble. It's why myths like, we only use 10% of our brains, or you can predict baldness by looking at your mother's father, spread so easily. We hear them, believe them, and rarely bother checking. What's worse is that once a belief lodges in our mind, our brain goes into protection mode. We fall into a trap called motivated reasoning. Instead of using new information to update our beliefs, we use it to defend them. We actively seek evidence that confirms what we already think, and we ignore, discredit, or twist any evidence that challenges us. The classic study on this is called They Saw a Game. Researchers showed a film of a particularly rough Princeton-Dartmouth football game to students from both schools. When asked to count penalties, Princeton students saw the Dartmouth team commit twice as many fouls. Dartmouth students saw both teams commit equal fouls. They watched the exact same film, but their pre-existing beliefs and loyalties made them literally see two different games. We all do this. Our beliefs act like filters, coloring everything we see. And here's the real kicker. Being smart doesn't protect you. In fact, it can make it worse. Why? Because the smarter you are, the better you are at constructing clever arguments and finding data to support your side. You become a master lawyer for your pre-existing beliefs rather than an impartial judge seeking truth. So we're in a tough spot. Our brains are hardwired to make snap judgments, believe things without evidence, and defend those beliefs like fortresses, no matter what. Seems like we're doomed to be irrational. But there is a way out, and it lies in community, in what Annie calls the buddy system. We might be terrible at spotting our own biases, but we're pretty good at spotting them in other people. We can see when our friends are overconfident, or blaming bad luck for mistakes they clearly made. The problem? Social rules usually prevent us from pointing it out. It's considered rude. Think of talk show host David Letterman interviewing reality TV star Lauren Conrad. She was describing drama in her life, feuds with friends, arguments with boyfriends, framing it all as things happening to her. In the middle of her story, Letterman cut in with a wry smile. Maybe you're the problem, do you think? The interview immediately got awkward. Conrad was offended. The audience gasped. Letterman had violated the unspoken social contract. He was supposed to nod sympathetically, not challenge her narrative. But his question, however blunt, was exactly the kind we need people in our lives to ask us. A truth-seeking group, or decision pod, as Annie calls it, is a small circle of people who've explicitly agreed to help each other see the world more objectively. It's a group where normal social contracts are suspended, and the new contract is based on shared commitment to accuracy. In this group, it's not only okay to challenge each other's thinking, it's required. This is like Morpheus offering Neo the red pill in the Matrix. You have to choose to see the world as it really is, not the comfortable illusion your brain wants you to see. In a truth-seeking pod, you don't tell friends stories about bad luck for sympathy. You tell them about tough decisions you made, and ask them to help figure out if you could have played the hand better. Annie learned this firsthand from her brother Howard and his circle of elite poker players. When she first started playing, her instinct was to complain about bad beats. Her brother shut that down immediately. He told her, "I don't want to hear it. If you have a question about strategy, you can ask me all day long. But there's no purpose in a story if the point is about something you had no control over, like bad luck." This was a clear charter for their interactions. The goal wasn't confirming each other's feelings, it was improving each other's thinking. So what makes a good truth-seeking group? Annie outlines key principles borrowed from sociologist Robert Merton, who developed norms for scientific communities. Simply put, they are: first, focus on accuracy. The group's primary goal is getting closer to truth, not making everyone feel good. This means rewarding people for being objective and open-minded, not for being right. Second, accountability. You know in advance you'll have to explain your reasoning to the group. Just knowing you'll answer to others makes you think more carefully and less emotionally in the moment. And third, most importantly, diversity of viewpoints. A group of clones who all think the same way is useless. It just becomes an echo chamber. You need people who see the world differently, who will challenge your assumptions and force you to consider alternative possibilities. This is why, as John Stuart Mill argued, it's so important to hear what can be said on all sides of an issue. It's the only way to get closer to the whole truth. This is incredibly hard to do. We're naturally drawn to people who agree with us. It feels comfortable. But comfort is the enemy of learning. A good decision pod creates productive discomfort. It helps you see your blind spots. Even without a formal group, you can apply these principles. When you tell someone about a decision, try leaving out the outcome. Don't say, "I made this investment and it tanked. What did I do wrong?" That biases your listener. Instead, just describe the situation and decision you made, and ask for their thoughts. You'll get much more objective analysis. Another powerful technique: actively argue the other side's point of view. If you and a friend disagree, try switching positions and making the best possible case for their side. This forces you to engage with their reasoning and moves you away from simply defending your territory. Ultimately, surrounding yourself with people willing to take the red pill with you is one of the fastest ways to improve decision-making. They become your external, deliberative mind, helping you overcome the reflexive emotional shortcuts that so often lead you astray. But what if you're on your own? What if you're facing a tough choice in the heat of the moment, and your decision pod isn't there? This is where the final, and perhaps most creative tool in the book comes into play: mental time travel. Our brains have a remarkable ability to project ourselves into the future and revisit the past, but we rarely use this power strategically. Most of the time, we're trapped in the present moment, driven by immediate feelings and desires. Comedian Jerry Seinfeld has a brilliant bit about this. He says he stays up late because he's night guy. Night guy wants to have fun and watch another show. The problem of being exhausted in the morning? That's morning guy's problem, says night guy. I'm staying up. Then when the alarm goes off, morning guy is miserable and groggy, thinking, "Oh, I hate that night guy. He always screws me over." We all have a night guy and morning guy. Our present self often makes choices that benefit us right now at the expense of our future self. This is a well-known psychological bias called temporal discounting. We irrationally prefer a small reward now over a much larger reward later. It's why we choose the cookie over the apple, the spending spree over retirement savings. Mental time travel is about bringing morning guy into the room with night guy. It's creating a conversation between your present, past, and future selves at the moment of decision. One simple, powerful way to do this is a tool developed by business writer Susie Welch called 10-10-10. When facing a choice, you ask 3 questions. How will I feel about this decision in 10 minutes? How will I feel in 10 months? How will I feel in 10 years? This simple exercise forces you to zoom out. It breaks the grip of immediate emotions. That argument with a friend might feel all-consuming right now, but in 10 months, will it even matter? In 10 years, will you even remember it? This perspective shift can calm you down and help you make a more rational choice aligned with your long-term values. Another form of mental time travel is what's known as a Ulysses contract. This comes from the ancient Greek story of Odysseus, Ulysses in Latin. He knew he had to sail past the island of the Sirens, whose enchanting song would lure any sailor to their death on the rocks. So what did he do? Before they got near the island, he had his crew plug their ears with beeswax, and he had them tie him to the mast, with strict orders not to untie him no matter how much he begged. He was his rational, past self making a binding contract to protect his future, irrational self from predictable temptation. We can make Ulysses contracts in our own lives. If you know you'll be tempted to drive after a party, you can make a contract by taking a taxi there, leaving your car keys at home. Your sober past self is protecting your future self. Trying to eat healthier? Make a contract by not buying junk food at the grocery store. Your disciplined, shopping self is protecting your hungry late-night self. You're raising a barrier to make the bad decision harder and the good decision easier. But the most powerful forms of mental time travel involve not just looking forward, but working backward from the future. There are 2 techniques for this. The first is called backcasting. You imagine a future where you've successfully achieved your goal. Say your goal is doubling your company's market share in 3 years. You imagine holding up a newspaper with the headline, "Company Doubles Market Share." Then you tell the story, looking backward, of how you got there. What were the key steps? What obstacles did you overcome? What decisions led to this success? This process helps you identify the critical path to your goal in a much more vivid way than just planning forward. But there's a flip side, and it's even more powerful. It's called a pre-mortem. A post-mortem, as you know, is what a doctor does to figure out why a patient died. A pre-mortem is an exercise where you imagine, before you've even started a project, that it's failed spectacularly. You hold up that imaginary newspaper, and the headline reads, "Company fails miserably, market share plummets." Then, you and your team tell the story of why it failed. What went wrong? Did a competitor release a better product? Did we lose a key employee? Was our marketing message wrong? Did we run out of funding? This exercise might sound negative, but it's incredibly productive. Research by psychologist Gabriel Odingen shows that people who only visualize success are actually less likely to achieve their goals. It's people who engage in mental contrasting, dreaming of success while realistically considering obstacles, who are most successful. A pre-mortem does just that. It gives everyone permission to be a critic, to raise concerns without being seen as negative or not a team player. It forces you to see potential pitfalls in advance so you can build plans to avoid them. It turns you into your own red team, whose job is challenging conventional wisdom. By using these time travel techniques, 10-10-10, Ulysses contracts, backcasting, and pre-mortems, you're essentially creating your own internal buddy system. You're recruiting your past and future selves to be your decision partners, helping your present self stay on a more rational path. But there's one final insidious bias we must guard against, one that can undo all this good work. It's called hindsight bias. Think of time as a tree. The past is the single solid trunk. The future is a multitude of branches, spreading out in every possible direction. Every moment, we're at the point where the trunk meets the branches, choosing which branch to follow. But once a future happens, once one branch is chosen and becomes part of the past, we tend to take a mental chainsaw and lop off all the other branches that never happened. We look back and see only a straight line, a single trunk. The path taken now seems like it was the only path that ever could have been taken. It seems inevitable. When Trump won the 2016 election despite polls giving him only a 30 to 40% chance, Everyone screamed that pollsters were wrong. They forgot that 30% isn't 0%. An unlikely event isn't an impossible one. Hindsight bias chopped off the 60 to 70% branch where Clinton won, making the Trump victory seem like it was always a certainty everyone should have seen coming. This is the enemy of probabilistic thinking. It stops us from learning, because if every outcome was inevitable, there's nothing to learn. The work we do with scenario planning, with backcasting and premortems helps us fight this. By mapping out the branches of the future before one of them happens, we create a record. We're memorializing the uncertainty that existed at the moment of decision. This allows us to look back with more clarity and objectivity, to see that the outcome was just one possibility among many. It allows us to judge our decisions not by the branch that grew, but by whether we did a good job mapping the whole tree of possibilities in the first place. And that, in the end, is the journey Annie Duke invites us on. It's a journey away from the impossible and stressful task of trying to be right all the time. It's a journey toward the manageable and rewarding work of navigating uncertainty, calibrating our beliefs, and moving step by step toward a more accurate and objective view of the world. Life, like poker, is one long game. There will be wins and losses, good luck and bad luck. None of that's fully in our control. But the quality of our bets, the quality of our decisions, that is. And if we can get just a little bit better at that, day after day, the cumulative effect, like compounding interest, can change everything. As we wrap up our journey through thinking in bets, I want to reflect on why this book is so profoundly important, especially today. In a world that feels increasingly certain of its opinions, where every issue seems black or white, Annie Duke's message is a much-needed call for intellectual humility. The most powerful lesson for me is the incredible freedom that comes from decoupling your self-worth from your outcomes. We live in a culture obsessed with results. We celebrate winners and dismiss losers. This pressure forces us into a defensive crouch. We're so afraid of being wrong that we stick to safe bets, avoid taking smart risks, and spend more energy justifying past decisions than learning from them. Thinking in bets offers a way out. It tells us the goal isn't perfection, the goal is being a good learner. It shifts focus from the impossible task of predicting the future with certainty to the achievable task of making the best possible bet with the information you have. When you adopt this mindset, failure loses its sting. A bad outcome is no longer an indictment of your intelligence. It's simply new data in the long, ongoing game of life. This allows you to be more adventurous, more curious, and ultimately more resilient. So how can you start putting these powerful ideas into practice right now? Here are 3 simple actions you can take today. First, start expressing your confidence as a percentage. Next time you're about to say, "I'm sure that," or "I know this will happen," pause. Instead, try saying, "I'm about 80% confident that," or "I think there's a 60% chance of that." This small language change forces you to acknowledge uncertainty and opens the door for more honest conversation, both with others and yourself. Second, find one decision buddy. This doesn't have to be a formal truth-seeking pod. Just find one person in your life, a friend, family member, mentor, whom you trust to be honest with you. Next time you have a big decision, tell them you're not looking for agreement, you're looking for challenge. Ask them, "What am I not seeing here? What's the other side of this?" And third, use the 10-10-10 tool on one decision this week. It could be something small, like whether to procrastinate on homework, or something bigger, like handling a difficult conversation. Before you act, take just 60 seconds and ask yourself, what are the consequences of this choice in 10 minutes, 10 months, and 10 years? This simple habit of mental time travel is one of the most effective ways to break the spell of short-term emotion and connect with your long-term goals. That was our deep dive into Thinking in Bets by Annie Duke. We've explored the core ideas today, but I'll be honest, a summary can only ever be a map. The real treasure is found when you make the journey yourself. The true magic happens in the quiet moments of reading, when a particular story or simple phrase connects with your own life in a way you didn't expect. This summary is a starting point. designed to help you decide if this book is a journey worth taking. If anything we've talked about today has sparked your curiosity or challenged your thinking, I encourage you to grab a copy. Reading it isn't just about learning. It's an experience that can genuinely change the way you navigate the beautiful, messy, uncertain game of life. You can find a link to the book in the description below. Also, if you found this summary valuable and want to continue exploring the world's most powerful ideas, please take a moment to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. That way you won't miss our next journey into another life-changing book from the billionaire's bookshelf. Let's keep learning and growing together.